Hi guys, welcome back to another Hugh Jeffreys video. In this video, I'm going to be repairing this Google Pixel 2 XL from 2017. I purchased this phone for $99 off eBay with a completely shattered front and lightly cracked back. Luckily, the phone appears to still be functioning underneath as I'm able to see the status bar up top. The phone cannot be used in its current state given the damaged OLED screen, which only displays a solid color which can change color and brightness the longer the display is lit up. But before we get started, I'd like to thank iFixit for sponsoring this video. Get parts, tools, and guides at ifixit.com/HughJeffreys or at the link below. Coming back to the Pixel, it's time to remove that damaged front display. Ideally, you'd want to power down your device or wait for it to go flat if the touch isn't working, as there's no way to shut down the device with a damaged screen. As I didn't have time to wait for my device to go flat, I proceeded by heating up the edges of the phone to soften the adhesive. Afterwards, applying a suction cup so I could apply upward pressure to hopefully create a gap between the frame and screen to insert a plastic pick. Once the pick was inserted, I could simply keep reheating and moving the pick around the edge of the display to separate the screen from the frame. While Google has used adhesive to attach the display, it was much easier to remove compared to some Samsung phones I've recently worked on. This process took me around 6 minutes to complete. However, of course, this all depends on how damaged your display is. Once I've got the screen lifted up, it's time to disconnect the cables, which are hidden under some plastic brackets which are clipped into place. These are quite dangerous as it's quite easy to slip your plastic pick, damaging a connector. With the old screen removed, I'm going to take the time to clean up the frame before I can fit on the new panel and test out the phone. The cleanup process will depend on how much glass was remaining on the frame, which usually depends on how cracked the screen was. This one was quite damaged, so it took a little bit to clean up. Now before I attach my display, I'm going to take the time to disconnect the battery. The reason I've got to do this is as it currently stands, this phone is in sleep mode. As I didn't have the time to wait for the battery to go flat and there was no method of shutting down the phone, I needed to disconnect that battery before reconnecting it and reattaching the new display. Disconnecting the battery will shut off the phone, so when I connect up the new display, I have no chance of shorting out the connection while it's powered on. With the phone ready to go, it's time to crack out my new replacement Google Pixel 2 XL LCD and Digitizer assembly from iFixit. Pulling it out, I can test fit it onto the phone by simply connecting up the two connections, and we can finally see whether this Pixel is indeed still functioning correctly. Pressing and holding the power button, the phone successfully booted up to the lock screen. Luckily, the previous owner had given me his passcode, so I was able to sign out of his Google account, turning off the factory reset protection, and then I could actually just erase the phone and do a factory reset. After the phone had successfully erased, I could set it up as brand new and have myself a Google Pixel 2. While I had the phone set up, I did check the front-facing camera to make sure it wasn't damaged when the display was. So now that we know the phone works, it's time to continue on with the repair. And before I stick down the display, I'm going to put on this new replacement piece of glass for the back, as well as prep the display up with some new earpiece mesh, which both parts are of course coming from iFixit. With the phone shut down, I can remove the display and turn the phone over where we can heat up the back glass section, and I'm going to start removing it with some plastic picks so we can replace this cracked piece with a nice new one. On a side note, I should also mention the frame on this phone does have a few marks where it was dropped. I don't feel that this warrants a whole housing replacement as the rest of the frame is in excellent condition, so I'll be leaving it as is. After I've removed this piece of glass, I will come back with a pick and spudger just to remove any remaining glass, for when we stick down the new panel, it will seat correctly in place. I'll also need to take off the camera lens and install that on the new piece of glass. With that all ready to go, all I need to do is simply press it down into place, and that was actually quite a simple repair. Flipping the phone back over, I'm going to clean the speaker and microphone grills with some alcohol before I start prepping up the new display with the pieces of mesh. For the lower grill, I reused the original mesh, but for the earpiece, I've got a replacement one just to go on there with some new fresh adhesive. Now that the screen is prepped, I'm going to attach the new adhesive which will hold the display in place. Now if you're doing a repair like this, do not cheap out on the adhesive, make sure you get some quality stuff like this one here from iFixit, because this is all that's holding that screen onto the phone, and if you have some bad adhesive, your screen is likely to lift up or fall off. I'll take my time in aligning it and making sure it is seated correctly, so I see no adhesive when the screen is stuck down. Before we can attach the display, I'll need to remove this plastic protective film off of the back, and then we can attach up the display by connecting its two connectors to the motherboard. I'll also need to make sure to reattach the plastic brackets which clip into place and stop the connectors from coming disconnected when the display is sealed into place. Now before I seal up the phone for good, I'm going to give it one last test. The reason for this is because once it's sealed into place, it will be a really big mess and pain to try and get up the display without cracking it, and I'd also need to find some new adhesive to stick down. So I ran some tests and everything is working as expected, so it's finally time to finish off the repair and seal down into place our new OLED screen. Making sure it's lined up correctly, I can press it down firmly into place on all four sides. Now there are some marks on the side which I decided to just go over with a permanent marker. I'm not sure whether this will stay on or come off over time, but it does look a little bit better if it is dark, as it is less noticeable. With that done, I can remove the plastic film from the top of the Google Pixel 2, and we're done. So this is it, a fully functional Google Pixel 2 XL. While the frame has some cosmetic damage from a drop, I didn't replace it as it didn't impact on the device's functionality. This Pixel runs Android 9 as it hasn't been used since mid-2019, but it can be updated to Android 10 if I'd like. If you guys want to check out the parts that I used in this video along with the tools, make sure you go and check out the link down in the description. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffreys video. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button and consider checking out the phone restoration playlist for more videos just like this one. Also, make sure to follow me on my social media, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.